RepreZen API Studio comes with advanced code generation that creates documentation, scaffolding code, and client libraries directly from API specs written in Swagger-OpenAPI or RAPID-ML. A gen template is a generator for a specific kind of output that can be reused with different API descriptions. And a GenTarget is an instance of a gen template wired to a specific API spec as its input. Documentation formats include print, online, and diagram. API implementation scaffolding, sometimes called a server stub, is the boilerplate code for your API, a starting point for your actual implementation. Our scaffolding code gen templates illustrate recommended implementation patterns and save you the hassle of setting up your projects from scratch. Client libraries wrap HTTP interactions in classes and methods that are native and idiomatic to the client programming language and framework. Client libraries make it easier for client application developers to work with your API. Most Swagger gen templates come from the open source Swagger-Codegen project. Some come from RepreZen, some from NSwag and other third-party providers. When you create an example project or add a new API spec, it comes with a default set of GenTargets. But these are only a few samples of the many generators available. RepreZen currently ships with over 70 gen templates for you to choose from. A GenTarget consists of a folder which, by default, is named after the gen template and placed in the GenTargets folder. GenTarget folders contain a .gen configuration file, a Maven POM XML file, and a build.gradle file. Note that the Project Explorer view is hidden by default. Click here to display it as a pop-up, or here to restore it to its docked position. You can minimize it again like this. The YAML format.gen file identifies the gen template, specifies a relative path to the source input file, and parameters for CodeGen. You can edit this directly to change parameter values. You can run a GenTarget from the right-click context menu or from the toolbar. You can also run all the GenTargets for the active API spec from the toolbar with one click, like this. And you can add a new GenTarget from various places, from the toolbar drop-down, using the toolbar button, from the File New submenu, and from the Active tab in the dashboard. Once you run the GenTarget, you'll find its outputs in the Generated subfolder. You can always open generated files to inspect them. Certain file types have associated Eclipse editors, so they'll open inside API Studio. Others will open in the system default editor for the file type. You can control this using the right-click context menu to open the file in an associated Eclipse editor or in the default system editor. GenTargets run from the IDE or the command line, and we recommend that you keep the default project structure to ensure that the build mechanisms continue to work. If you're using RAPID-ML, you can also leverage the multitude of Swagger gen templates by generating Swagger from RAPID-ML and then use a Swagger GenTarget to generate stuff from that. Code generation uses downloaded dependencies that are managed by Maven. Occasionally, you may see an error message when generating Swagger. If that happens, force an update like this. You can remove GenTargets by simply deleting them from the Project Explorer. You can also change the target output directory for a GenTarget by modifying the appropriate setting in the .gen file. Note that some of the RAPID-ML gen templates are designed to work together. For example, the JAX-RS gen template requires Java XML bindings, which in turn requires XML schema. These form a dependency chain. When adding a new GenTarget that has these dependencies, you'll see an additional step in the wizard. You can confirm the use of existing GenTargets or create new GenTargets to complete the chain. This is simplified to a Create GenTarget Dependencies checkbox in the New Project, new Swagger spec, and new rapid model wizards. And when you execute a GenTarget somewhere in the chain, it automatically executes the required dependencies first in the proper sequence. Finally, you can easily create your own Gen templates for custom code generation. That's beyond the scope of this video, but you can find information on RepreZen's powerful, extensible code generation framework at docs.reprezen.com.